On the line with us is our old buddy and my colleague here on Sirius XM Channel 127 Progress, Dean Obeidallah. Is the Dean Obeidallah Show runs from 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Sirius XM 127. He's a columnist with CNN. He's a contributor to the New Republic. His Substack newsletter is the Dean's Report. Just go to Substack.com and type in Dean's Report. It'll pop right up. You don't need to know how to spell his last name. Which is a challenge for many of us. Dean, welcome back to the program. And Dean Obeidallah and on Twitter, and deanofradio.com on the internet as well. Dean, welcome back to the program. Thank you. You've been hitting it out of the park with your Dean's Report newsletter over there on Substack. I'm just really impressed. I know a number of people. The last time we talked, or maybe it was the time before, you had published a cut and paste to send to your Secretary of State to get Donald Trump knocked off the rolls. I've had a bunch of people do that and call and thank you for that and all that kind of stuff. Now you're talking about, it's not just Donald Trump. The Republican Party for years and years and years has been supporting criminals. And for some reason, this label of the GOP as essentially the criminal party has never stuck. First of all, let's just go through some of the criminals that the Republican Party has promoted over the years. And then secondly, I want to get into this question of why is it that the Democrats aren't using this against them, and why is it that the media never talks about this? So let's start at the beginning. Who are these people?
Well, there are many. I mean, obviously, first of all, we're living through Donald Trump getting 91 felony charges. The guy is out on bail. Corporate media won't use that term. I am trying to sneak it into an article for CNN where Donald Trump, who's out on bail, is campaigning today. So I'm doing my best to get that. Look, they've rallied around that criminal. But it's not just that. I mean, Ken Paxton in Texas AG has been under indictment for years. And he got his nomination. He won re-election. And that's even not this impeachment stuff. We're talking about securities fraud when he was in the state legislature. And he was charged there with essentially fraudulently inducing people to invest their life savings in scams. And they're still for years.
But wasn't he just acquitted for that, Dean?
No, that was different. That criminal indictment is still hanging over his head. The longest delay in the history of indictment to trial I've ever seen in my entire life.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's part of the games going on there. Yeah. So you've got that. You had others, lesser and well-known people at times. I put in my article about Duncan Hunter and Chris Collins, two members of Congress, Republicans, early Trump endorsers, both indicted by Trump's own DOJ just months before the election in 2020. And they won re-election in Republican districts. They didn't care. Ultimately, both pled guilty to their charges. And Donald Trump ends up pardoning them when he's leaving office, because that's what you do in your GOP. You clean up all the criminals who supported you from the beginning. And that's what he did with his pardon of Duncan Hunter and Chris Collins, who, again, they pled guilty of their own free will because they were caught. One was securities fraud with Chris Collins, and Duncan Hunter was just spending campaign donations on going on vacations and on watches and everything else. Pled guilty, and Trump, like the criminal boss that he is, if you're on his team, he takes care of you.
He pardoned both of them.
He did. He pardoned both. And it's a little fanfare.
Yeah.
It should make your blood boil when you read about it, because they did plead guilty. And at first, when they were charged, they did a very Trumpian thing, saying it's witch hunt, all that stuff. And Chris Collins actually said he was not going to run for re-election and changed his mind and ran, and he won. Because he knew in a red district, as long as you're pro-Trump, you can get away with literally crimes, literally attempting a coup.
Because Trump does it. Yeah.
Of course. I mean, and look at the fraud case today. By the way, I read the decision. I have to tell you about one thing that people are missing. You want me to share with it?
Yeah, please. We discussed this briefly on your program last night, and I was very grateful for your helping me to understand it. I recited that to my listeners this morning in the first hour. So go for it. What did we miss?
Well, I just read the decision. We talked a little bit yesterday. I had not read it. There was one of his defenses where he said, okay, the value of what I'm saying in these documents is wrong, but the future value is going to be huge. And you know how he defended that? Under oath in his deposition. The judge cites it. He said that the numbers can be inflated because he could find, quote, a buyer from Saudi Arabia to pay any price he wanted.
I cited that in the first hour today. And the judge said, in response to that, this suggests that he's engaging in influence buying rather than wise investing, or words to that effect.
And also, you mentioned yesterday, we talked about the idea if there's no victim per se, like the banks didn't lose money,
right.
What do people say to that? Because that was Trump's defense. And the judge does a great job making a distinction between restitution and disgorgement. Restitution is compensation to you as a victim personally, or the bank. Disgorgement is like a criminal penalty in that the goal is to take away ill-gotten gains from someone who violated the law to get them to deter others and deter Trump. And that's what the judge is saying. It doesn't matter. Like, yes, the banks lost money on risk assessment. There are different ways of quantifying. The judge makes a great point in citing black letter law on why disgorgement is needed here. And the goal is to deter Trump and others, because if Trump suffers no penalty, then why can't we all just fraudulently put any document, any number we want for any application for a loan to get lower interest rates on it? Because we have so many, our value of our collateral is so huge that we're not a risk anymore. Why can't we lower the value of things for lower insurance premiums? You can't do that. So why Trump is not charged criminally is probably the biggest question everyone's going to have. I don't have the answer to that. Because when you read this, it is fraud. It is absolutely fraud. And that's what the judge said. The judge even had a line where he said that Trump wants them not, quote, the court should not believe its own eyes. Yeah. That's what he wrought.
Yeah,
that's
quoted,
remarkable.
He quoted the Marx Brothers from Duck Soup. He said, are you going to believe me or your lying eyes? I mean, that was literally, Groucho's line.
So remarkable stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying this is part and parcel. Will Trump go down in approval among the GOP base, even though he has now been adjudicated as a matter of law of committing massive fraud in numerous instances? The judge goes through a lot of details. No, nothing, because the GOP doesn't care about criminality. They only care about putting black and brown people in jail. That's what law and order means. Black and brown people go to jail. If you're white and you're on our team, you're free to do whatever you want.
Right, and
we're
get pardoned.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's what we're living
so
through.
Dean, one other quick question about that, and then I want to move on to some of the other stuff I see over at the Dean's report. My understanding is that the judge granted the summary judgment on the first of 9 counts that have been brought against Trump and his organization by Letitia James. The other 8 counts, if I'm remembering the number right, are still out there. They're still waiting for court resolution. Is that correct?
There are other counts still outstanding, but the key thing, and we talked about it last night, there's 2 parts of this case. It kind of mirrors a civil lawsuit, liability and damages. So now on liability, it's been adjudicated by the judge as a matter of law. There's no question of fact that Donald Trump committed fraud. The other counts are going to go to the idea of what's the disgorgement. Tish James, the AG, wants $250 million. Also, you're going to have, now he's going to lose control of these companies in New York. And it doesn't mean the business is over. You have his lawyers lying, saying they're nationalizing the company. That's not at all true. It will go. He still owns it. He gets all the benefits of it. He just can't run it, nor can his kids. So both sides have to submit names within 10 days of receivers to run it, and the judge is going to pick someone. But next week, the damage part of the trial begins, and there's no jury. It's just a judge trial. It's this judge again looking at the damages. So we'll see how it plays out, if it starts on Monday or not.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Over on Dean's report, DeanObeidallah.substack.com, you just plug into a search engine, Dean's report and Substack, and it'll pop right up. In fact, it was the very first thing that I got when I did that. Your most recent piece, and you've done the homework, the research for this, and I'd love you to just share a little bit of it with my listeners in the 2 minutes or so I think we've got left before we hit a hard break. Yeah, it's titled, Trump Wants You to Forget That He Was the Most Anti-Union President Ever. He's going tonight to Michigan to make a pitch at a non-union auto manufacturing site. Tell us about Trump's anti-union record.
And in my article, I detail what the AFL-CIO and other unions said in 2016 about Trump. They called him a charlatan. Unstable charlatan was the head of the AFL-CIO. And they went through in detail the IBEW, and I put it in my article, about when he had a chance to pick union or non-union workers for his projects, he said he would always pick non-union. That he would screw over workers for years, union or not workers. So he was anti-union. Then when he came in, he appointed people to the National Labor Relations Board who were anti-union, so it hurt the ability to unionize, it hurt union workers, appointed judges who are anti-union, signed executive orders that weaken unions, weaken the ability for
and let's not forget about Anthony Scalia.
Right, and you had Andy Scalia there, so you've got everything he did was anti-union the entire time. That's why the explosion now under Biden, you have a leader like Biden who's pro-union, And we're seeing record numbers of people approving of unions and the strikers. And that's why Trump's going. He's going because they're more popular than him. And he wants to suck up the popular people. And he's going to a non-union place. He didn't, as Sean Fain, the head of UAW, said, they were on strike in 2019 for 60 days outside of GM. Did Donald Trump show up once? Never. He didn't care about them. Now they're popular. He sees the approval pay. That's why he's going now. He cares about one person, Donald Trump. And again, so Trump, out on bail, is traveling to Michigan today, just to sum it up properly.
Yeah. And again, back in 2016, Donald Trump came out and said that if you're going to go on strike against the auto companies, you should be fired, number one. And number two, that UAW workers were making too much money, he said in 2016.
And he slammed the union in 2008 when there was the bailout that they needed, or during the Obama administration, maybe it was 2010. And he blamed the unions for driving up the cost of things, and that was their fault. Yeah. He's always been pro-corporation, anti-worker. That's who he is.
Well, he's a billionaire. I mean, what do you expect? Wow. This is so how is this going to be? How are the low information voters, the Fox News watchers among the auto workers? It looks to me like they're going to swallow this thing hook, line, and sinker.
Some will, but then again, Biden wins the union households in 2020 by 16 points, better than Hillary Clinton, who only got 9 points. So we're back to normal. So there's still going to be about 40% of union households supporting Donald Trump, regardless. So that's we just need to keep those same margins, because you need them in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. These are key constituent groups there. And right now it looks good for President Biden on that. We're a long way from the election, but President Biden truly is the most pro-union president since FDR. So in our lifetimes, unless you're amazingly old and still alive, God bless you. But for the rest of us, he is the most pro-union president. And it's not just words. I mean, he has supported union organizing. He invited Amazon and Starbucks union organizers to the White House. When he was campaigning in 2019, he bragged about being union from the pro-union since the 1970s. Yep. So it's not a photo op. This is who he is. This is his DNA.
I'm with you. The great Dean Obeidallah. You can listen to him on Sirius XM 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Sirius Progress Channel 127. Dean, thanks for dropping by.
Thank you, Tom.
And check out his newsletter, The Dean's Report, over on Substack.